to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? Teller checking in for a special episode. We got a breakdown of Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. You guys know a lot has changed over the last couple of years. Nowadays, these types of fights are a normal thing. You got guys coming from the UFC side of things, dabbling over into the sport of boxing. You got celebrities dabbling in the sport, ex-NFL players, ex-NBA players, YouTube characters like Jake Paul. And let's be clear, Jake Paul is the man that really started this trend as far as putting it onto a major stage. I mean, look at it now. It's on it's on Showtime. I mean, it's on a major showcase, and it's a fight that people are going to be interested in, right? I mean, this is a fight that it's a little bit more legitimate, I guess you could say, these days, or just, a while back, this would be something that was just comical. I'll tune in, or at the very least, I'll catch the recap of the fight later in the night, and I'll see how this fight went down. I'll tell you guys my thoughts on it real quick. Other notable fights on the card. You got Chris Avila taking on Mikhail Vershovsky, who makes his pro debut. Chris Avila, we know him as a fighter that could really never hang. He was riding the coattails of Nate Diaz for a long period of time. And we also have Uriah Hall making his professional boxing debut against Le'Veon Bell. You guys remember Le'Veon Bell as one of the top fantasy football performers from a running back position in the NFL. Obviously a stud athlete, and besides just fantasy football, I just wanted to note that because he was a stud as far as fantasy football went, but obviously one of the best running backs in the game. Obviously he's a true athlete, so that's a fun fight, I guess. And then you got, whatever you got going on here, but nothing really worth noting as far as I'm concerned. Ashton Selv, excuse me, I'm not super familiar with him. I heard a little bit of buzz about him. He's 7-0 as a pro, taking on Braulio Rodriguez. Sorry guys if you guys are excited for that fight, but I'm really only going to be talking about the Paul versus Silva fight. That's what I'm here for. So let's jump into this matchup. Jake Paul, he is now 5-0 as a professional, with knockouts in what do we got here? Knockouts in 4 of his 5 pro fights. And of course, the first fight with Tyron Woodley did go to a split decision. Now let's be clear. Although he did knock out Tyron Woodley in the rematch in his most previous fight, he wasn't looking that good going into that final round, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he clips Tyron Woodley, or I shouldn't even say clips. He just annihilated Tyron Woodley with a nasty right hook. It was a nice, powerful punch. We know that Paul puts a lot into all of his punches. He does. We've seen his cardio kind of decline within some of his fights. We've seen him slow down a little bit. I do believe that we'll see him grow in that category, though. You have to understand that he is new to the sport of boxing compared to other guys in the sport, right? I mean, if you look at Jake Paul, he's about to be 26. Although he might have dabbled with the sport of boxing throughout his youth, he is new to the sport of boxing as far as taking it to this type of level. You're going to see his muscle memory and different parts of his body adapt a little bit more, so you'll see his boxing cardio get better throughout the years. I truly believe that. I mean, he's obviously grinding in the gym, putting in the rounds. You're going to see him look fresher and sharper later in fights as his career goes, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. Anderson Silva. I mean, Anderson Silva is now 47 years old. You guys know the scoop. I'm sure a lot of you guys heard, and if you didn't, I'll let you know. Anderson Silva, he's kind of put out there that he's been knocked out in some of the sparring leading up to this fight. Then later on, he kind of retracted a little bit from it, tried to say there was a little bit of confusion for as far as the translation went with his English. But I mean, he did really say that. So I mean, I thought maybe he was just trying to sell the fight a little bit more. So I thought maybe that was the case. He said that his coach wanted to really show him or really prepare him to go to war because that's what this fight's going to be about, basically. And I thought that was kind of interesting too, because I was kind of surprised to hear that his coaches would have thought that a guy like Jake Paul is going to bring this war to him. I feel like you would want to go the exact opposite type of route. I feel like with a matchup like this, Anderson Silva doesn't want to take any damage. He wants to avoid that big shot, and he wants to be patient, doesn't want to involve himself in a war, and he wants to pick apart Jake Paul from the outside. And hopefully Jake Paul is the fighter that's slowing down as he's headhunting throughout the early rounds, and then Silva can clip him with a counter shot or something like that. You would expect that a fighter like Anderson Silva, even though he's up there in age, you would expect a fighter like Anderson Silva to have the better cardio from a boxing standpoint going into this fight. You would expect him to be the guy that can throw more punches and have his arms and shoulders be a little bit more fresh and be able to look more crisp in the later rounds. Again, we've seen Jake Paul kind of get a little clunky in those later rounds, but yes, he will have more power. He will look to throw those more sledgehammer types of shots at Silva, but I think that Silva has the ability to dodge those shots. They should be pretty telegraphed, and we know that Anderson Silva, he's a fighter that at times has looked like he's in the Matrix, right? I mean, you remember what he did to Forrest Griffin. The first and only pay-per-view event that I've ever ordered in my life was the Anderson Silva versus Forrest Griffin event, obviously. But the way, I mean, it was exciting the way that fight ended, but it was so quick. Obviously that was one of the last ones I ever bought. But obviously, there's other reasons why that was the last one I ever bought. But, nowadays it's, you guys know. So, Anderson Silva still has those types of abilities. We saw what he did to Tito Ortiz in his last boxing match. Is he going to be able to avoid Jake Paul for the entire fight? Now, again, let's take a look at how many rounds this fight's going to be. This fight is going to be a 8-round, of course, 3 minutes. An 8-round fight. I mean, that's a pretty lengthy fight, right? Obviously, I mean, some boxing matches go to 10, 12 rounds, but 8 rounds for guys like these, I mean, that's going to be some deep waters for these guys when it hits the 6th, 7th, 8th round, in my opinion. I'm really interested to see who's going to look fresher at that point in time, and I have a feeling it's going to be Anderson Silva. I think this fight's going to come down to the fact if Anderson Silva can avoid the big shot from Jake Paul. Do I think Jake Paul can hit Anderson Silva with that big shot? I think that there is some real likeliness to that. I really do. He has been proving people wrong time and again. The shot that he just hit Tyron Woodley with, like I said, he didn't start that fight necessarily super sharp, but when he did land that shot, that was a very, very impressive shot. I mean, you don't see guys get knocked out like that in combat sports, period, that often. So you got to give him a little bit of respect. I mean, think about it, right? And for those of you guys that train and you've been in the gym, you sparred hard or whatnot, I mean, even if you've just fought in the gym, right? If you really went at it with someone in the gym, I mean, when you clip someone with a shot like that, when you're breaking down tape, or if you remember watching that fight live, I mean, that's a real shot. That's a real right hand. I mean, that's a right hand that's going to knock out a lot of guys. I'm talking about even at the professional level. And again, the ceiling or the growth of Jake Paul at his age is something that you're going to see more so, obviously, too, while Anderson Silva is going to be on the decline. Another very important note that I want you guys to take into consideration before we check out this betting line. Jake Paul is from what I've been hearing, and I didn't do extensive research, but I'm sure he's on steroids, man. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about that. I don't think that they're really drug testing him extensively for these fights, from what I kind of heard. Excuse me if I'm wrong on that, if anybody knows more about that, but I don't think they're really putting him into the fire with the drug testing. So you got a guy like Jake Paul young on whatever type of substances he's on, growing with his skills. But then again, if they're not really drug testing these fighters, Anderson Silva is a fighter that's popped multiple times in the UFC, right? He's popped a couple times for taking performance-enhancing drugs. At the age he's at now, you got to assume he's definitely on some types of stuff too, if he's able to get away with it. So that's something that you also got to take into consideration. All right, so if you weren't familiar with Anderson Silva's boxing resume, he has won his last 3 fights, knocked out Tito Ortiz a year ago, defeated Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the son of the legend. That was a year and 3 months ago. He won that fight via split decision. That was a big one for him. What else? Let's see. We got Julio Cesar de Jesus. That was 17 years ago. That was a long time ago. And then 24 years ago, when he was a young buck, he got knocked out in his first ever boxing match. So just kind of to get an idea what he's about as far as that goes. Of course, Anderson Silva's striking was always his strength in the sport of MMA. His boxing was his strength. And then you have Jake Paul with the 2 victories over Tyron Woodley, the last one being the knockout over Ben Askren, the knockout over Nate Robinson, the basketball player that couldn't fight for the life of himself. I truly believe I could whoop Nate Robinson up in a boxing match if I was able to get on the undercard. I would love to be on the undercard boxing up a guy like Nate Robinson. I mean, obviously a stud athlete, he could dunk and all that, had absolutely no hands. He was leading with his head. Anybody that knows how to throw some crisp shots is going to tag a guy like that up. But that was early in his career. And then the first victory of his career over Ali Al-Fakari. Now, from a physical standpoint, we know Jake Paul is a lot bigger than a lot of people think. Jake Paul, 6'1", Silva at 6'2", an inch height advantage, if you will, for Silva. The reach on Paul, 74 inches with the comeback on Silva at 77.5. A 3.5 reach advantage there in the arms. I think that's worth noting. Silva, especially if he's attacking from the outside, 3.5 reach advantage there. I think that does carry some weight. He's going to be looking to stay out of range of that big shot from Paul, and he'll have an added 3.5 inch reach advantage to go along with his game plan there. So I do like that. And one other thing too, before we get into the betting line, just want to talk about this real quick. So this fight is scheduled for 187 pounds. Of course, Anderson Silva, the longtime reigning 185-pound champion of the UFC. So this is a guy that's fought at this weight at the pinnacle of his abilities. So I like that aspect as well. Now, let's go take a look at this betting line here. We're going to be checking out Bovada.lv, which you guys don't forget. If you're looking to sign up to Bovada.lv, reach out to me. Let me hit you up with my referral link. I'm going to give you guys a bunch of free official plays of mine as well. And you're going to get an added bonus into your Bovada.lv account. And in my opinion, it's the best sports book out there. Right now, Jake Paul is a minus 230 favorite over Anderson Silva, who is, ironically enough, a plus 185 underdog. I find that very interesting. I think this has a little something to do with some of those rumors of Silva getting wobbled and hurt in this training camp. I don't know how much I believe them for the sheer fact that he's the guy that leaked that information. Like I said, I think there's something a little behind that. You guys already know that I feel there's more value in Anderson Silva here. I don't feel confident taking Jake Paul at minus 230. I know he's the more younger fighter, the more surging fighter, but Anderson Silva is a silky smooth striker. He's a guy that's been doing this at a way higher level for a way longer period of time. I'm edging Anderson Silva at these types of odds. And in fact, I'm taking Anderson Silva to win this fight. I think Anderson Silva gets the job done. Let's take a look at some other bets here that are available on Bovada.lv. The total rounds over and under. So we'll take a look. 1.5 rounds. The over at 1,200. The under at plus 575. I mean, that's a juicy line there, plus 575. But I mean, do you really see somebody getting knocked out nice and early like that? Do take note that Anderson Silva's knockout was very early against Tito Ortiz. I wouldn't be shocked. I see more value, obviously, on the plus 575 line than even touching a minus 1,200 line. I don't like that at all. You never know what could happen in there. They might engage early. Somebody might get clipped. Paul throws some heavy attacks, and Anderson Silva can counter very sharply. So maybe you're looking at these underlines here, in my opinion. I would not be shocked if we see somebody get hurt in this fight. Of course, it could obviously play out to be kind of a bore fest like we saw in the Woodley versus Paul fight. Really in both of them, and all the way leading up to the knockout in the second one, it could play out something similarly to that. It's obviously a possibility, but I think I wouldn't be shocked if we see somebody get clipped in this matchup here. Paul should be a little bit sharper. Anderson Silva is a sharp fighter. He's a more polished striker than a Woodley, the Woodleys of the world. And if you guys catch my drift there, so I'm liking these underlines a little bit more so. Not necessarily crazy about them, but I'm liking these unders here at dog odds, in my opinion. I'm hoping we see something crazy go down in this fight. So stay away from any of these types of lines, specific rounds. Those are all traps just to steal all your money here. These are all traps. If you want to get frisky, maybe look for an Anderson Silva knockout in the early in the second round, for first, second, third round. Maybe Paul comes out attacking early, and Silva hits him with that counter shot. So we'll see how that goes. All right, and again, Bovada.lv has all types of prop bets. 0 knockdowns in the fight, plus 160. It's interesting. Does nobody get dropped at least at once in the entirety of the fight? Exactly 1 knockdown. Again, I highly recommend that you guys stay away from these types of prop bets, just to be clear. You see these types of props for events like the Super Bowl and stuff like that. They just have these crazy amount of props that are too specific with high odds, high value odds, but they're just so unlikely, and overall you do lose a lot of your money there. So if you guys are interested in any specific prop bets, if you guys got any questions, comment below, and I'll be sure to tell you my thoughts on it. Again, fight's taking place tomorrow. Who do you guys have winning this fight? Who do you see more value on as far as the betting line goes? Curious what you guys think. Wanted to get this video up to you. We have some UFC action taking place tomorrow night as well. We got a solid main event between Arnold Allen and Calvin Kattar. You guys know I have my prediction video up here on the channel for that as well. Hope you guys enjoy a great weekend of fights. And hopefully the weather is starting to cool down by you if you're in the south. If you're up north, hopefully it's not getting too cold too quickly. You guys are enjoying life. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. Hit that subscribe button. May you all hit that like button on your way out. Catch me on all my social media platforms. They're scrolling below. All right, guys. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.